Hey everybody, welcome back to Tools for Life. It's morning up on my side of the world and I'm having a nice cup of coffee. I picked this coffee cup up in the UK at the border between France and England at the Channel Tunnel. If you have an opportunity to do that, I think it's well worth your it's not even trouble, your time. It was the boarding whole situation was way easier than any flight I've ever taken, and the engineering aspect of it all fascinates me. I'm completely fascinated by feats of engineering and what humanity is capable of. So with that, let's get into today's topic. This is a knife I made some years ago, maybe 6, 7, 8 years ago or so. I'll get in and I'll show you the knife in a minute, but how I actually made my very first knives is, as I mentioned before, I didn't have a whole lot of money. And I wanted, I had knives like the Becker knives is a BK10 with a nut and bolt missing. But you'll notice some similarities here, okay? You'll notice some similarities. There are some differences too, but I was definitely inspired by the Becker knives because they're so great and I think they're so cool. The handles are fantastic. This sheath is made by me. It's not the best sheath, but it works. It's one of my very, very first sheaths, and I rounded the edges and did all this by basically cheap handmade tools. So you can get pretty functional stuff for low quality money. And basically there are several different types of wood sanders, and I use a wood sander to make this knife and also several other knives. And yeah, how I did that was I cut a notch in the wood sander with an angle grinder, and that was basically my platen. I didn't use a steel surface. I didn't put a whole lot of pressure on it. Maybe one day I'll show a tutorial about how I did it. But we'll see. That sander cost me 110 euros, okay? And it still works. It's going strong like a champ. It does wood. It's made for wood. Can you do metal with it? Yes, but you really shouldn't. But can you do it? Yes, okay? So with that, here is a big behemoth of a knife that we will talk about. This sheath is made by me. Not too bad. There is a drainage hole. I just drilled that, but not terrible. Again, I didn't have a polishing machine, okay? And so I couldn't polish the ends of this. I didn't have like the wheel and stuff like that. So yeah, here you go. And you can see that this knife has been heavily used. It's a little bit tight and getting some scratch marks from the sheath, but to be honest, I don't care. So yeah, this is one of my first knives that I did. Not the first knife, but one of. I started off with smaller blades. And yeah, you can see here, no jimping on the top, but the steel is 5160. You can see that the grind line isn't too straight here. It's like a little bit messed up here. 5160. I believe the company is WTI. I'm not so sure. I'd have to go look it up. But years ago, there was a company that was highly sought after for their 5160. They made very, very high quality 5160 that had low phosphorus. Phosphorus causes brittle, like steel to get real brittle, and just causes general issues within the steel. And so they had really good controls over how much phosphorus went into their 5160. I believe after 2008, not long after that, they went bankrupt, okay? And they no longer produced that 5160. It was widely regarded by knife makers all over the world as the very best 5160. And there was one place, I believe it was Knife Kits, that had maybe another steel supplier that had some inventory left over from that blank or one of their last runs of 5160, and I was able to get a small blank. The price wasn't that bad. They were trying to get rid of it, and it resulted in this. This is a 1/4 inch thick, or about 6.5, 6.35 millimeters, something around there. I don't have my calipers handy, so I can't measure it, but about a 1/4 inch thick, okay? The blade width is very, very wide, and there's a reason for that. So we can take this BK10 out, and you can see that the BK10 is substantially narrower with regard to the whole profile, okay? Look, let's see how we can do this without. So you can see that with regard to how narrow, you can see that it's a lot wider, and there's a reason for that. So you can see here, yeah, if we put the spines together, yeah. So the reason for that is because 5160 is such a good steel to work with, because it's so flexible if you get the heat treat right, that I wasn't really concerned about any breaking. And if you look here how thin the edge is on this, it has the same profile pretty much as a razor. Maybe not a hollow ground razor, but it's very, very narrow profile, and that's good because that just makes the whole knife cut a whole lot better, right? So that was the whole idea behind it. Something like this, like a BK10 or any of the Beckers. So I wanted a bigger knife that was like a BK9 that I have, but I don't have it right on my table right now. Like a BK9, but bigger, and with a choil where you can, put your finger in, and where you see how this goes in, and you can put your thumb over that. I didn't want any sharp jimping, because if you use this part of your hand, it's real soft and tender, okay? So I didn't want any sharp edges there, all right? So it's a bit rounded off, and you get more control over the center point of the knife, so you can do a lot of small work with it, and of course you can do chopping. So the cool thing about the handle is that you can see my hands are messed up, and this is from calisthenics, so I do pull-ups, and my hands are totally beat up, but I wear gloves when I'm doing woodwork, and so the knife was meant to accommodate thick leather gloves, and that's why you can see here that the handle is quite substantial, all right? It's quite substantial. There's also another reason. Compare that to the BK10 handle. You can see that, my hands kind of go over that. My hands are pretty wide, and you put on gloves and it takes up that whole space pretty much, okay? And I didn't want the glove getting caught on any sharp edges or anything like that. The other thing is, it gives you the ability to move your hand up or back. And if you move your hand back, it gives you a lot better chopping ability, okay? So you can see that I've done some cutting, I've done some batoning with this, and one time when I was out testing, kind of messing around with this knife, I went to split a log that had 2 knots in it, and the 5160 is so good that it made sort of like an S in the wood. The steel bent, and it didn't crack or anything. It's worked. That was one of the first times I tested, and I was really, really surprised. And 5160 as a super tough knife that's going to really work is just fantastic. Now I put like a false patina on it. I don't recall exactly what I did. If I had to remember, I think I put orange slices on it to give it that look. The handle is G10, so you can look very roughly machined, obviously, but the edges are soft enough. They're soft enough, and you're not going to get any cuts, okay? And so, yeah. Of course, these handles, they can't come off. I know you see that there are screws screwed into each side, but they can't come off because I've put epoxy within the handles there. So they're not going to come off, and everything is sealed up real tight. So I can't take the scales off and replace it. But this is G10, and I marked it up to be kind of grippy but smooth at the same time, right? So you're not going to lose any grip. It's not going to be totally slick, and I think it kind of looks cool. At least it does to me. So this is an overview of a knife I made, and I've got a few more that I'll show if you guys are interested. So thank you very, very much, and have a great day.